gentlemen, welcome to this webinar series, Dawning of the Plant-Based Food Revolution. To formally start our webinar, let us have a moment of silence to feel the presence of our Lord with a prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of our team from Food Science and Food Safety, I would like to welcome you back to the second session of our webinar series, Dawning of the Plant-Based Food Revolution. This webinar is presented to you by the School of Food Science and Technology of the Philippine Women's University. We are now streaming live via PWU YouTube channel. My name is Hanilyn Lolarga, a graduate student in Master of Food Safety Management. And joining me to the second session is Ms. Mirabel Carroso, a graduate student in Master in Food Science.
Thank you, Ms. Hani. So for the first session, our speakers already talked what are plant-based foods and its food safety hazards. Now, our session for this afternoon is all about Upshot on regulatory and environmental issues. So our speakers will update us about the regulatory side of plant-based foods, its sustainability, as well as the latest packaging innovations. Sounds interesting, right?
That's right, Ms. Mir. And again, we would like to inform everyone that we are now live at PWU YouTube channel. And our current attendance is 200. So good afternoon and thank you for taking interest in this webinar.
We would like to also acknowledge the presence of our dear VIPs for joining us today. Mr. Marco Alfredo Benitez, President of the Philippine Women's University.
Dr. Emerita Zornosa, Director of Graduate Studies.
Dr. Felina Young, Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs.
Dr. Mechita Domlao, Program Chair of Information Technology and Head of PWU Technology Integration Team.
Dr. Ligaya Braganza, Program Chair of School of Food Science and Technology, Dr. Ignacio Pablo, Dean Emeritus of School of Food Science and Technology.
Our dear advisors in Food Science and Food Safety Management, Professor Maria Divina Alcazabas and Professor Rosalinda Lorilla.
Again, welcome to this session, Upshot on Regulatory and Environmental Issues. Please be reminded of the house rules of the webinar. Please ensure a stable internet connection. There will be a 10-minute question and answer session after each speaker's presentation. Type in your question at the comment box for the Q&A session.
Next, for the evaluation form, please click the link at the video description. Cutoff of submission is 30 minutes after each session. Only registered participants who completed the evaluation form will receive the certificate per session. Local participants will be prompted to answer the Q&A game before the speaker's presentation. Again, the Q&A game is applicable only to our participants here in the Philippines.
Before I introduce to you our first speaker, we want to see the participation of our dear attendees by answering our Q&A game. So this game is only applicable for our participants here in the Philippines. We will be flashing the QR code on the screen, or you can click the link at the video description. Answer the questions correctly and get the chance to win 100 pesos worth of load. Okay guys, are you ready? Okay, our question is, which additional document has been issued by Codex Alimentarius Commission to supplement the most recent version of General Principles of Food Hygiene? Is it letter A, CAC/RCP or Recommended Code of Practice 1-1969 Revision of 2013? Letter B, CXC 1-1969 Revision 5 of 2020? Letter C, CXC 80-2020. You have 3 choices to choose from, so take a pick. Cut-off of submission of entries is 20 minutes after the start of the talk of the speaker. 3 winners will be chosen to win 100 pesos worth of load using the Google Random Number Generator. We will reveal the answer after our speaker's discussion, so stay tuned. I will turn to Ms. Hani to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Mira. So, as we all know, later part of last year, the revised Codex Alimentarius General Principles of Food Hygiene was released. And to give us an update in line with our topic about plant-based foods, I am thrilled to present to you our first speaker this afternoon. She graduated her bachelor's degree in food technology at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, a graduate of American Institute of Baking in Kansas for Baking Science and Technology. Her passion for kids and teaching ended up being licensed for teaching for secondary education from St. Mary's, Quezon City. She has been a consultant for 6 years now, and after a continued 25 years of service and improvement in product development and quality assurance systems in the industry. Students and professionals, let us all welcome the darling of our class, a graduate student in Master of Food Safety Management, Ms. Beth Nicdao, in her topic, Food Hygiene Code for Plant-Based Foods. Ms. Beth?
Thank you, Yen and Mir, for the very kind introduction. Good afternoon to all our guests and participants, to the organizers of this webinar, to our professors and dear classmates. With all the benefits of the plant-based foods mentioned earlier by our first speaker earlier today, and then the issues raised on its possible potential health impact and its on safety measures, that if safety measures are not being followed, let's now see what the experts or the Codex Alimentarius Commission is recommending for industries and in order to achieve food safety amidst environmental and cultural challenges today. So I'll be presenting this afternoon the latest version of Codex Alimentarius Commission's General Principles of Food Hygiene, which is aptly coded as CXC number 1, 1969, Revision number 5 of 2020, as well as some other related food codes. Um, my objective actually for today is to provide you, our guest, with an update on the general principles of the food hygiene and and some highlights. CACRCP 1969 being the mother document, and then highlights on the revision of this code, which is CXC 1969 revised last year, 2020, and its significance to the safety and suitability of plant-based foods whenever possible that it can be mentioned, since it's a general guide, general document for principles of food hygiene. Also, I would be happy to be able to share with you some practical insights on its application in the area of manufacturing and food service sector. So, with that in mind, I'll go by this topic outline on first, the chunk of the discussion will be on the general principles of food hygiene, the CXC 1969, Revision 5, year 2020. And then the next part will be a bit of overview on the food codes related to the plant-based foods, collectively covering CXC 53, 2003, and the latest of which CXC 80, 2020, and a bit of halal regulations or Upshot. Now, for the general principles of food hygiene, let me just make mention that this document was authored by, of course, no less than the Codex Alimentarius Commission, and it was adopted in 1969, and okay, it was adopted there in 1969, and it has since then it has undergone about 5 revisions until last year, when the latest version of 2020 came out, wherein HACCP, or the Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point system, now then formed the chapter 2 of the main document. Okay, so now to give you the highlights, since this is a quite lengthy document, and will require about a day or so of a discussion, I chose, for purposes of this presentation, I chose to present to you the highlights on the changes from the 2003 version and the 2020, 17 years after, revision that Codex came up with on this general principles for food hygiene. So to look at the format first, here's a bird's eye view of the format, just for you to appreciate the difference between these two documents. We can see that in sectioning per se, the introduction, objectives, scope and use, and including the general principles, has already been standing alone in the latest version, meaning there has been a lot of explanations or expounding of thoughts and principles in these sections. Hence the need, probably this is the basis by which CAC decided to have this separated from the main chapter. So, and it has, for chapter 1, which is another evident feature, would be the 2 chapters presented there. Chapter 1 being referring to the good hygiene practices, with recommending HACCP in it, and part of and has HACCP system being part of the annex. And then chapter 2, mandating HACCP this time, and then chapter 2, which is the HACCP, which covers the HACCP system and its guidelines for application and introduction, as opposed to the previous version wherein HACCP system or HACCP has been part of merely part of the annex in the 2003 document. Now, to just to give you or to show you a better outlook on the content, um, there is a color coding I used for this presentation. I have expanded the bird's eye view earlier shown, and this will show you here that well, for the yellow, it is the the good hygiene practices of the first chapter, that is, and for the green, it will refer to the chapter on HACCP system and guidelines, while the auxiliary chapters are represented by the ones highlighted in gray. The red text you could refer to will be additional documents or something new to or unique to the 2020 version, just for your reference. Okay. Now, let me also, for clarity of the discussion, let me also show you the difference in the weight of the definitions defined in the 2020 version. For in 2028, I mean in 2003, there were 28 terms clearly defined, and it was in the 2003 version, there were 28 terms, sorry, and then these were spread out between the main body and the annex. Now, for the 2020 version, all of these 33 terms were included in the first part of the document, and out of these 33, 10 new terms were actually added, 12 of which were modified just to expound on the food safety aspect. And then the 10 new terms are as follows, as you will see there on the screen: acceptable level, allergen contact, competent authority, control measure, food business operator, food hygiene system, good hygiene practices, HACCP system or HACCP system, the prerequisite program, and significant hazard. These are new in view of the emphasis given to the total food safety management system that this document is presenting. Now, to give you the key points in the scope, under the scope, we have there, just to show you the comparison in the scope, in 2003, the food chain was defined to cover the primary production to consumer. It was broadly defined as that. Now, for 2020, it was expounded further to cover the processing. Aside from primary production, of course, will be the processing, manufacturing, preparation of food. So that would be referring as well to the food service sector, the packaging for the repacker or repacking operators, and then for storage, for those running a business on storage, cold storage, and all that. And then the distribution sector as well, for retailing, food service operations, and the transport system. So it was clearly defined as such. And also, one thing new about the 2020 is the inclusion of the temporary mobile establishments and vending machines covered by this food code. Now, for the other auxiliary documents, the intro, objective, and use, just to compare how the document was presented as against the 2003 version. Food safety in 2003 has now been expanded to food safety, or expanded rather, to food safety and suitability. Again, to emphasize the priority on food safety and its suitability for its intended use. And then the responsibility for this food safety and suitability is now also extended to importers, warehouse operators, logistics, and retailers. Now, for the this document was so expressed such that it had to clarify it very well clarified the relationship between good hygiene practices and the HACCP. The good hygiene practices being the backbone of the of a successfully implemented HACCP system. And then whereas whereas in 2003, HACCP was merely recommended. In 2020, HACCP was now mandated, and the HACCP plan is meant to control a significant hazard where good hygiene practices will not be sufficient to resolve an issue. And it calls for a lot of there is an emphasis as well in this document that this system now calls for a lot of flexibility and sensibility and a science-based approach for food business operators to practice in the assessment of likelihood and severity, or what we now actually call risk assessment. Now, for the roles and responsibilities of each one in the food sector was also defined in 2020, a little bit broader for the food business operator and the government. So, if in previous version, the food business operator was simply referred to as the industry. Now it specifically mentions food business operator, referring to everybody, every certain business sector in along the food chain, covering the from the primary production down to the distributors. No, so all of these are considered food business operators, and even within a certain food business operator, several business units will have to exercise their own capacity to inject food safety measures in their own in each and every specific line of expertise and requirement. So for the food business, each food business operator should, so you may be the head of the company or merely the head of a certain department, but any way you put it, you are responsible for ensuring food safety at all stages of the food chain. Even if you are just running single unit of a takeout counter, you are the food business operator. So you are responsible for the food safety from the point that you acquire your raw materials, even in the choice of the type of raw materials or ingredients that you use, up to the point that you get to serve it to your customers. So that individual or that company or that department will be called a food business operator. Now, this food business operator has the full responsibility to know and understand hazards associated with the product. Unlike before, wherein you could always rely to probably an expert or a few documents you can refer to for details. This time you have to completely know your product, understand your process, and ang matindi dito, you have to understand the hazards that are identified with the product and that process of yours. No? Now, once you are in full control of these informations, you need to develop your own food hygiene system or food hygiene management system. And you just don't develop it, you need to make sure that you implement it. But before you even implement it, you need to verify that that system will really work. So it actually needs a lot of collaboration from all members of the workforce or all members of your department or your company and everything. So this is how the new version is presenting the the system now for food safety. Now, because of the need to go multidisciplinary and collective in terms of output, no, there's a need to ensure personnel competency appropriate to their job activities. So it doesn't matter what your task or what your job is in a particular company, even if you're a security guard, even if you're the cleaner in the utility area, or even if you're managing 2 or 3 sections of the company. The point there is, are you competent to handle that responsibility in ensuring food safety along with the line of your responsibility? That's a big question. And then, of course, the food business operator will have to will have to be open. I mean, in recognizing strengths and weaknesses in the operations in terms of resources, such that he or she should be able to know or determine when an external help is needed or a more expert advice will be needed in order to assess a certain risk factor in his or her operation. So, again, defining the roles. Since there are 3 sectors in the food chain, no? The food business operator, the competent authority, and the consumer. Now we're down to our competent authority, which is actually in the presentation of our government people, wherein they are expected to have the competency to legislate, regulate, and guide our people according to the guidance of this code, of this new version of 2020. So they are not just there to encourage implementation of the rule, but they are also tasked and has the responsibility to engage the food business operators in a direction wherein food safety will be achieved at the end of the day. So it's not a contest between anybody or any sector, but it's a matter of collaboration, healthy collaboration between the government and the food business sectors, regardless of the size. And then, and if there is this significant collaboration between the two, then for sure it will not be difficult to implement number 2, which is to ensure that each food business operator gets to implement appropriately the control system for food safety and the suitability in an effective manner. Kasi pag hindi effective, sayang effort. And then lastly, we have here the consumer, wherein we as a consumer, everybody, all of us are consumers, we are not spared from that responsibility in ensuring that our family gets the safest food ever, or even our friends, or everyone actually is a consumer. So our responsibility as a consumer, of course, we need to be informed. That's why we do attend seminars like this. Good for us who are here and who attended this morning session on the food safety hazards and on plant-based food introduction. And we get to be informed, and more importantly, we get to follow the rules or the guidelines being painstakingly taken by the authorities or the experts, no? And then especially for those people or who prepare the food for us, or the if we could acknowledge the labeling, instructions on the labeling, on up to when can you use it, hindi yung, okay, expired na, and then pwede pa kaya? Okay, so let's be guided by the expiry dates on the respective packaging of our food items purchased on retail or elsewhere. Now, or even yung sa diba? If we know the guidelines on fresh fruits and vegetables, we see our stuff in the refrigerator developing off colors and a little bit of molds growing here and there. Now we know, and I'm sure those of you who have attended today's earlier session would understand that there's no need to um, feel lousy about having to throw away a piece or two of rotting rotting edge of onion just for the sake of economy, but it's more expensive actually to be saving your health if we are going to risk it for the sake of that. So having said that, we follow the guidelines on. I think it was mentioned earlier that it's good to follow the WHO's 5 keys to food safety, and it would be good to implement it as well in your own home. And then in terms of retail foods, of course, following guidelines and reminders, proper usage, storage, and then warnings on allergens and everything. Take note of that because you'd never know who among your loved ones would be affected by that. And then let's apply, of course, the food hygiene measures as discussed, referring to the 5 keys of food safety offered by the World Health Organization. Okay, so those are the responsibilities that's in store for everybody down across the food chain. Now, there's this document into 2020 that is unique to 2020, so it's not there in the 203 yet. But I would guess that this is also to support the other auxiliary documents, though, like the familiarization of FBO of the food business operators with relevant hazards. Basically, the ones I'm presenting here are just a summary of the section. I mean, and then for purposes of discussion, I would like to ask you to focus on the text in bold text. I mean, to focus on the text in bold letters, and from there, we can see that this is just a reiteration of what has been discussed earlier, like familiarization of the FBO, already discussed in the responsibility. It should be a science-based approach to determine the risk that is involved in every process, and then should be, of course, scientifically validated ang mga control measures natin, and then application of the control measures, monitoring it, and then corrective actions, verifications, and proper documentation. So properly applied prerequisite programs, which is our good hygiene practices. If we're referring to the industry, or if in the food service or at home, then we could be referring to our 5 keys of proper food safety. No? And then combining this good practices, good hygiene practices with the control measures and the critical control points where it is required, since GHPs or good hygiene practices will not be sufficient. All this will have to be collectively there to perform to ensure food safety. And then, of course, with this food safety system in place, there is a need to periodically review for its adequacy, or if there's a need to adapt or revise any points. So, and of course, to top it all, it would be senseless not to have this communicated across all relevant parties. No, just like what we are doing now with the new code, we are disseminating it to concerned parties. So now, part also of this section would be the emphasis rather on the management committee commitment to food safety, because of course in the other or in earlier versions of 2020, of course this has been taken on from time to time sporadically, but in this version 2020, there's just this emphasis on it to on particularly on cultivating a positive food safety culture, like commitment of the management and commitment to food safety, that is leadership for direction, awareness of food hygiene by everyone across the within the company. I mean, so and then it's also in this food safety culture wherein there is an open or clear communication amongst all personnel, lalong-lalo na if there are deviations. Kasi mas mahirap it's difficult to address a concern if things are not brought out in the open, right? Parang parang everybody is groping in the dark as to where the root cause really truly lies. So it's always good um to encourage our employees to be very open about those things. And then of course, not much movement could be attained without the support of the management to support any endeavors of the food safety through their resources. And with that culture, um, once everybody is into it, of course, it will be good to have the roles and responsibilities and authorities, lalong-lalo na, to be well communicated amongst every member of the organization. Why so? Because uh, honestly, in my experience with a few meetings I had, um, most of the issues I would encounter will be the difficulty of or the mistakes, the costly mistakes encountered in any operation for that matter. It could be product dev, QA, operations, even in food service. The most common or um, costly mistake is for when the employees or the our staff would tell us that they didn't know how to do things better. So it's always um, it breaks my heart, because basically if you have a if you will try to understand my background, I'm basically a teacher by heart. So I take it everywhere, even in trainings or everywhere. Everywhere, I'm really an advocate of education. So whenever people in the industry would, if you get to talk to them and get them to explain on why things go wrong, most of the time I do experience the answer that they didn't know any better. Maybe they could be they may not be telling me the real thing, but it would goes to show at times that they didn't really know how to do things any better. So it's good to or they feel that it's not their role, it's not their task, it's not my responsibility. Then whose is it? So it would be good to focus on these things. So clarity, delineation are very important because they wouldn't know if they are authorized to do it in the first place. So food hygiene safety integrity is also tested when changes happen. So we need to make sure that when changes happen or when deviations happen, the integrity is still there and the system is still working. No? That's what happened when the system is verified, validated, kahit na anong galaw niyan, it will have a solid foundation. Now, the controls are verified. Okay, we have discussed that. And do not forget to have things documented because sometimes you get a bit compliant pagka whenever, oh, it's working, but we just keep forgetting that documentation will always still be the process. No? It will mark history, kumbaga, whenever you document it. And then compliance with relevant, the management has to commit compliance to relevant regulatory requirements. And then, of course, there is the spirit of the ISO, as I've been saying, the spirit of continual improvement. So there's assessment, and then you work on the improvement, and then you check again if it works. So thin wall by nature. And then for the first chapter of the body of the text, which is basically there are 9 chapters here, but as I have said earlier, or if I were to explain again myself here in this discussion, I went lengthily on the auxiliary chapters, primarily because the spirit of the revision lies much on those lies much on those sections. No, now for the body, yes, there are a few changes, but all of those could be attributed to the auxiliary or the support or the introductory part. So we go to the. I have highlighted here, by the way, in this slide here, some of the chapters that we will go through briefly due to time constraints. As much as I wanted to spend my whole day with you, I can only go through some sections. And we start with the first one, which is the control of food hazards, wherein basically this introductory slide of the first chapter will actually support the earlier statements in the previous slides, no? That the control food hazards basically is composed of 3 factors: the the implementation of good hygienic practices, and then the prerequisite programs, which is uh, in uh, in primary production, it would be good agricultural practices. And then we have our sanitation, standard operating procedures. Then we have GWP, or good warehousing practices, good distribution, and so many others, calibration practices and maintenance. All of those, documentation, etc., traceability, all of those will form part of the prerequisites. And then, of course, the HACCP system implementation. All of these will suffice to control the identified hazards in the operation. Now, first, since we are looking at our plant-based food, we are focusing on the plant-based food. Realistically, the primary production is the key of a good harvest, right? Looking at a healthy primary production will be the key to good produce, no? So it's important. It's been discussed lengthily here in this code, but it will also be discussed in another code, whereby it will also refer back to this mother code. So let me just go on to mention again. Kindly refer to the text in that I have highlighted here, like control of contamination, um, controlling the contaminant such that it doesn't get introduced to the system all through at any point of the food chain. Okay, so all points considered, and then you need to identify and not just consider the potential source of contaminant. So what does that mean? Like before even considering an agricultural plot for and where you will be planting your seeds or mga asyenda, ganyan. You have to consider a lot of points like sources of here. Number 3, water suitability in there, what's in the ground, the type of soil you have there, is it near a highly industrialized area such that some of its fumes and waste will actually pollute the soil that will nourish the seeds that you will plant there. So all those things. And then, of course, there is a need to control your plant health, which means now that yung application of agricultural pesticides, chemicals, including the pesticides, will have to be considered. No, Specifics of these guidelines are present in another supporting code of the Codex Alimentarius Commission. But to proceed, there is an emphasis also to remove and not just segregate materials or produce, to segregate defective produce from those that are found unfit for human consumption. So this is basically, this applies to most for manufacturing purposes. Kasi pagka yung mga retails, madaling makita. But basically for manufacturing, it's more of a mandate really, no, in the system. So now, for appropriate facilities or procedures should be in place for effective cleaning and maintenance, so as not to compromise food safety. Now, the key term here is effective. Uh, Prior to, it could just be cleaning and maintenance, but it has to be effective, which means that it has to be verified, and that personnel do not get to be source of contamination and their practices. So, what does that mean? Yung mga setups natin, let's say in a production, we are handling fresh produce, right? And the fresh produce could actually be written right away, straight from the farm, ano, as is, where is, maybe just a few wash and then kain na, no? And then with that, um, it's important that our personnel or the pickers will also observe good hygiene practices. One specific example provided by Codex here is the availability of their and suitability of their washroom, wherein it should be so designed such that they are not constrained to wash their hands whenever necessary before even going back to picking fruits. So you would imagine, oh, okay, you're already working in soil, you don't have to wash your hands so often, but that's not the case because you're always, that's the reason why sometimes, as mentioned earlier, no, yung mga Enterobacteriaceae and E. coli are so predominant in agricultural products. So things to watch out for. Now, another thing with our primary production is that there is a need to establish the cleaning and disinfection, uh, previously referred to in 2003 as cleaning sanitation, but now it's been expanded to cleaning and disinfection, and to watch out for pest pest um, pest invasion. So there has to be a system for pest control and proper waste management programs. This was also those of you who are into agriculture would apparently be aware that this is also part of the CXT 53 version 2003, right? And then you have to monitor effectivity and suitability of whatever procedures are being implemented there, like proper washing of hands. Kaya naman natin eh, just like what's happening in the COVID times, no? Biglang pumutok si COVID, so everyone is to proper hand washing. So it has to take COVID for us for everyone to follow the proper hand washing. So anyway, findings are addressed immediately, and findings should be addressed immediately by a qualified person. A highlight here on qualified person, because not just any person can address deviations or findings when it comes to pest control and waste management programs, or even yung contamination in soil, in water. Hindi pwede, di ba? Not everybody can do that. It needs expertise. It needs guidance. So that's how you get down to the bottom of the problem to resolve it. And then for that procedures or for the established procedures, you need to on cleaning the establishments and handling these areas of pest control and waste management. It has to be periodically verified, monitored, reviewed, and adjusted as needed. So just a summary of this slide and the previous, no. The call is for preventive measures, especially on the emerging issues on allergen control, and then to develop wherein we have identified 4 out of the 8 major allergens, known allergens, no, to be plant-based, no. We will later on take a look at some facts about these control measures, and then develop and monitor and verify and adapt these procedures, and then the root cause analysis, which was discussed earlier on. And now, for control of operation, in the section of control of operation, we need to discuss on the product and process description. This is, again, it has a star here, by the way. My star signifies it's a relatively new section of the 2020 version. No? So in this 2020, the product description is there. So this product and 7.1 product and process description is actually embodiment of the principles of HACCP, no, but modified so to to make to have it implemented using the good hygiene practices. So for any food business to be properly be in control, there is a need to describe the product, its intended user, intended market, how is it going to be marketed, how long is it expected to last in the shelf, and what specific storage, very much like HACCP really. But and then the description of the process flow, so that all of these would enable the food business operator to determine where certain controls should be, or good certain control measures like good hygiene practices or temperature control should, or any prerequisite programs should fall into place. So if again, with all those things being said, that those control measures should be assessed for effectiveness, and then of course, since you are you have set certain control measures, you need to monitor, and whenever there are deviations, you need to do corrective action, and then again, when you do corrective action, it doesn't just have to be alam niyo yun, yung spur of the moment or quick fix thing. It has to be long-term corrective action. One may be short-term, but there should always be a long-term one to avoid recurrence. So your corrective action needs to undergo verification for suitability. Okay, in order to find out if it's really adequate system for good hygiene practices. So now, part again of controlling the operations, which is particularly true for processed plant-based food. So when you're into gelling, drying, this will form part of the specific process. Of course, canning of fruits and vegetables. There is the factor on time and temperature control, wherein there is emphasis on the need to have your time and temperature controllers well calibrated. So garbage in, garbage out yan, di ba? When you're using it as reference and it's not calibrated, then you have a problem there. So specific process steps are in composition, in formulation. It should always be used as a guide in determining whether you are in control of the safety hazards. No? And then microbiological contamination, physical contamination, and chemical contamination will all have to be controlled. These have been mentioned by earlier speaker. And then, of course, the emerging allergen management is also one big issue with the 2021 version. All of these should all be based on scientific principles, wherein the goal there is taking preventive measures and the prevention of cross-contamination. So we go to the aspect on to the other aspects of good hygiene practices. Of course, there is control on incoming material, on packaging, and source of water, especially for our plant-based food, from all angles, from agriculture down to preparation of processed and ready-to-eat plant-based foods. Water is the best, the best solution to the problem because unless the water is contaminated, right? So for the rest, okay. So on Codex requirement for product information and awareness, there is reference to lot identification and traceability guidelines CXG number 60 of 2006. And it was just a reminder here that the product information on any particular product, whether it's institutionally produced or for retail, that the next food business operator or consumer who will receive that, we should be able to use that as a guide for them to implement the precautions to ensure food safety. So need for product labeling, of course, for potential food allergens and consumer education. So, okay, for chapter 2, just a quick mention here since that chapter 2 will be more on hazard analysis, and it's simply composed of the introduction with hazard on hazard system, wherein it offers flexibility in application, and it and getting into it might could actually result to some changes, and then some principles will be considered even in other codes of practice for food safety. And then the benefits of the HACCP system will basically be to enhance food safety amongst all other benefits here of fewer recalls, more effective use of resources, and efficient processes. And that, again, just like in GHP, the success or any food safety hygiene system, it's emphasizing here again that HACCP will require successful HACCP implementation will require commitment, knowledge and training, and a multidisciplinary approach so that all problems along the line are touched. Now, for the principles of the HACCP system, we all of us would probably know the 7 principles of the HACCP system, but what was simply revised are a few terms in principle number 1, 3, 5, and 6, wherein in 1, it was not just like to conduct a hazard analysis, but to identify control measures, and then validated critical limits and the need to address deviations when it occurs, and definitely to validate the hazard plan. So basically, this has been covered somehow. And just to mention the other food codes pertinent to plant-based foods, we have here the CXC 53 and the CXC 80 and the halal. Briefly, I will let me just show you all the other food codes related to plant-based foods, and 53 2003 on fresh fruits and vegetables will be uh, quickly brushed through, and then the last one will be on the latest addition to the Codex Code of Practice, which is the food allergen management for food business operator to supplement the recent revision of the general principles of food hygiene. No? So for CFC 53, which covers primary production to consumption, the GAPs and GHPs will primarily address the physical, chemical, and microbiological hazards therein. No? So basically, it will cover the environmental, hygiene, and all these things. Basically, the same. That could always be referred to the um, the the topics we have discussed earlier under the primary production. Now, for CXC 80-2020, which is the Code of Practice on Food Allergen Management for FBO, let me just reiterate that this is the latest addition to the Codes of Practice of Codex in support of this latest revision of the good hygiene principles. So basically the same, it will cover primary production to consumption, and it has interest for the growers, for the manufacturing facilities and retail food service in this particular aspect. And cross-contact is the most important point there. And common factors contributing to exposure to allergens would be this general to common to all these three area fields are ineffective cleaning of containers and food contact surfaces, inadvertent or inclusion of foreign particles, and inadequate separation of commodities with different allergen profiles, and lack of employee awareness and training on food allergen management. And for suggested management for this, for control of allergens would be primarily the opposite, which is effective cleaning, which needs validation and systematic planning in production to facilitate separation of commodities through time and place, and then enhancing employee training awareness to awareness on food allergen management to show them the impact of the effect of allergens on consumers. And for labeling guides, you have here the CXC 1985 and CXC 118 of 1979 for reference. Now, for halal, plants are basically halal based, so we don't have much issue about it except when they have poisons or toxicants and have narcotic elements which are hazardous to health, that they get to be haram. No? But when they are removed through certain process, then they could be back to being halal. Now, just to summarize, the good hygiene practices and the HACCP are primary components of the new revision of the good hygiene principles of good hygiene practices. No, so application of the HACCP to should complement the food safety system where a significant hazard scientifically verified has been identified, and responsibility has been ironed out and clarified a while back, and that to embody this responsibility will require a lot of effective training to build competency, and where it's lacking, then an expert advice should be necessary, and that CXC will have to be applied in conjunction with specific sector-specific code of practice to ensure comprehensive coverage of food safety system. Just to end this presentation, let me just share my thoughts with you that understanding the principles behind every concept makes everything else more meaningful and easier to adapt. This understanding should be backed by certain discipline, logic, and plenty of common sense, no, to uphold the force that drove commercially progressive countries to where they are right now. We in the Philippines have a very rich agricultural resources, and with those X factors for success, plus commitment for continuous improvement and advocacy for food safety, we as food enthusiasts may not just save a life, but thousands of them relying on the bounty of our Mother Earth. So all this could happen. We are withholding the spirit once steered by America's greatest president of all times, President Theodore Roosevelt, when he pioneered Save the World from Hunger back half a century ago. Times have changed, but certainly not principles, when much less the spirit to serve delicious and affordable plant-based foods to many, while remaining wholesome and apparently nutritious. Allow me to acknowledge my partners in this presentation, She Gabutin and RR Boreto, for helping me here. and of course as assistants from our CIT class 2021 and our PWU organizers. Of course, credits to our professors Rosalinda Lorilla and Professor Debbie Alcazabas, and to Dean Ligaya Briganza, of course, to Dr. Ignacio Pablo for the inspiration of the dawning. With that, these are following are my credits, references. With that, I'd like to thank everyone who shared their time with us today. Thank you and have a pleasant, enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beth Nicdao, for that very meaty discussion. Now, let us proceed to question and answer session. If you have a questions, you may type it on the comment box, and Ms. Beth Nicdao will help us to answer them.
Okay, Miss Beth, are you ready?
Yes, sure,
So,
honey. Yes.
for our first question, what changes in what timing do you see the Philippine FDA will be implementing in our local regulations to align with the updated Food Hygiene Code 2020? Let me repeat again. Let me repeat the question. What changes in what timing do you see the Philippine FDA will be implementing in our local regulations to align with the updated Food Hygiene Code 2020?
Hi, honey. The way I see it, it's not so far behind because I believe the our regulatory system through the FDA is already aligning the system with their about to be released AO, 153 version, no, which was supposed to be um, released last year, but I think due to the pandemic, it's going to be released this year, hopefully. Since I believe from one of my reliable sources that it has been the public consultation has been carried out already online, and thanks to my informant, and then but I believe it will be spousing the other as the other regulations in the interest of ASEAN nations, no. But since this, as we can see naman, the code of practice or this CXC1 1969 has it was just documented or released last year, but was primarily been implemented a few years back already. So a lot of it will likely be included already in the upcoming issue of the AO153. Um, that's it. That's how I feel it will be.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Next, what part of the revised CXC version with the plant-based food manufacturing plant should take more focus on?
Honey, I'm sorry, what part of the,
Okay, what part of the revised CXC version with the plant-based food manufacturing
okay.
plant should take more focus on?
Thank you. Thank you. I guess for the plant-based food, they have to focus very well on the primary production section, of course, because that is the start of the start of the line or of the food chain, no? And then of course from there, the distribution, handling and distribution, and if it's going to be retailed as fresh products, then the retailers point of selling. And then of course, but if it's going to be for processing, then there are factors of storage, um, sorting and all that, and then processing, preliminary processing, etc. And so it goes. Okay.
Okay, from A. Salakata, would the farmer be a part of the FBO?
Sorry, there's an echo. Will
Okay.
there?
Let me repeat the question from Isa Lakata. Would the farmer be a part of FBO?
Would the farm be a part of
Farmer be a
farmer?
part, yes ma'am. Farmer be a part of FBO.
Yes, Miss Talaka. The farmer will definitely be considered an FBO.
Next question. If there would be another revision of this codex, what do you think can be added that is lacking to the current one? Let me repeat the question. If there would be another revision of this codex, what do you think can be added that is lacking to the current one?
Um, at this point, I wouldn't say it's lacking, but I personally feel that it would be good to include in view of this recent ongoings, because as we all know, the revisions happen in so many years time because of the things that are happening even before the revision happens, no? But as it is right now, I feel that perhaps it would be good to include certain system with respect to emergency responses, aspects on those matters to be included even in auxiliary documents, and then supported by a few guidelines in the other sections, especially like control of operations. That's it, Miss Honey. Thank you.
Next, for you, what is the most significant development in food hygiene codes that is more relevant in this time of the pandemic? Let me,
Uh, what is the most relevant?
what is the most relevant development in the food hygiene codes? I'm sorry. For you, what is the most significant development in food hygiene codes that is most relevant in the time of pandemic?
Okay. One thing relevant with me, although not necessarily in time of pandemic, is actually this allergen control, no? Because personally, I myself have a lot of allergies to manage, and I barely know anyone who hasn't really have undergone any complications due to allergies. So the development on allergens is really a welcome thing for me. But in view of the pandemic, I guess my answer earlier to the what I could suggest on the on if there will be any revision or not. I guess it will be the more on the personal hygienic practices that should be emphasized, and that is what's really going on right now. And I guess that's one of the big benefits of the, I have mentioned earlier, it has to take a pandemic for us to be able to realize the significance or the importance of proper hand washing of those things. That's it,
Okay.
honey.
I think this is our
Thank you, honey.
how is GMP related to GHP? Is GHP another prerequisite program for HACCP or HACCP?
Okay, the GHP is actually a broader term, and it actually encompasses the general manufacturing practices, which is intended for manufacturing sectors, and you could actually come up with something else, good distribution practices for this distributors or where anyone in the logistics business, or all those things. You could term it otherwise, good planting practices, good eating practices, or what have you. But the thing there is the mother a code of practice would call for general GHP, good hygienic practices.
All right. So thank you, Miss Beth,
I
and
hope
to
I answered
our
your question. Thank you. Thank you, honey.
And to our participants who sent their question via comment box, and I hope that Miss Beth answered your questions. If you were not able to answer your questions due to time limitation, you may still send them to our official email address, pwufoodtrends2021@gmail.com. Miss Beth and our team will try to answer them. So we will now reveal the correct answer to our Q&A game. Let us see if we got the correct answer. The correct answer is letter B, CXC 1-1969 Revision 5 of 2020 version. Congratulations to Warmel Heat Bagayo, Lelaine Banguis, and Johnson Liagas for winning 100 pesos worth of load. Our team will get in touch with you through email or text message. Ms. Mir?
Thank you, Miss Hani, and congratulations again to all our winners. Okay, a quick reminder to all. Only registered participants will be eligible to receive an e-certificate upon completion of the evaluation form for each session. Please click the link at the video description. The link for the evaluation form will be opened after the Q&A session of the last speaker. Your responses to the evaluation form are very much appreciated and will be used for further improvement for our future webinars. Please take note that we will be accepting your evaluation form only until 5:30 p.m. Ms. Hani?
All right, thanks, Ms. Mir. Moving forward again, I want to ask the participation of our dear 300 local attendees to our Q&A game. Please click the link at the video description or you can scan the QR code flashed on your screen. Click the link and fill it up with your email address, full name, mobile number, and your answer to the question. So the question is, these are innovative new materials that carry similar properties and benefits to traditional plastics. Is it letter A, plant-based packaging, letter B, recycled packaging, or letter C, smart packaging?
So you have three choices to choose from. Cut-off of submission of entries is 20 minutes after the start of the talk of our second speaker. 3 winners will be chosen to win 100 pesos worth of load using the Google random number generator. Ms. Hani?
We will reveal the answer after our speaker's discussion. I will hand you over to Ms. Mira to introduce our next speaker. Ms. Mir?
Thank you, Ms. Hani. So to begin with our second discussion, let me share something in relation with our second topic. Did you know that, on average, packaging accounts for about 5% of the energy used in the life cycle of a food product, making it a significant source of greenhouse gas emissions. And for some products, the packaging used has an even bigger impact on climate change than the fuel used to ship it to market. To learn more about the food packaging, let us proceed with our second speaker. She graduated her bachelor's degree in chemical engineering at Adamson University, with units in postgraduate diploma at the Institute of Good Manufacturing Practices in India. She handled several positions such as cadet engineer, process engineer, production supervisor, technical services manager, and quality manager. Currently, she is working as the quality director of Starkson Packaging. To talk about packaging innovation for green living, please join me in welcoming our expert, Ms. Diana Samson, graduate student of Master in Food Safety Management. Ms. Diana?
Thank you, Mira, for your wonderful introduction. I think it's already past 2 and this afternoon, so I'll make our discussion as casual as possible. Just like drinking coffee with friends. Sabi nga nila, bright idea starts with a cup of coffee. So share your cup of coffee with me. So we'll discuss it. So I'll be presenting packaging innovations for green living. Scope of our discussion will start through labeling guidelines for plant-based food products, following our main topic, packaging innovations and certifications for sustainable claims, and ending my discussion of short summary and conclusion. Plant-based food products is not new in the market. I think nag-start siya 30 years ago. But recently, with the franchise of Shake Shack, introducing to market a plant-based patty, following Burger King for introducing plant-based patty, yung tinatawag nilang the Good Burger, and also SNR and Rustan's, big retailers here in the Philippines, starting to put on their shelves plant-based food products. following our fearsome restaurateurs and chefs for promoting plant-based products on their menu. Kung kilala niyo po si Chef LP, siya yung brainchild ng product na Vegilon, di ba? So nagsisimula na siyang mag-merge sa market. So pioneering in developing standards on labeling, Plant-Based Foods Association, or tinatawag nating PBFA, goals to promote consistency in labeling across processed plant-based food category. It has released the standards for labeling of plant-based foods. Up to date, they have 186 plant-based company members entire United States. So sample is si Better Than Milk and si Beyond Milk. Based in USA, Plant-Based Food Association leads the way by promoting a labeling standard that suggests clear labeling in terms that the consumer to understand it well. Examples such as meat, chicken, hamburger, and qualifiers includes vegan, meatless, veggie, and similar. They are active in policy battles at federal and state to defend its members on its constitutional rights. Sample is supporting Miyoko case of Miyoko Creamery. Si Miyoko kasi they have a product called cultured vegan butter. So pag sinabi nating butter, di ba may milk yon. So it is an animal derivative. So nailaban nila na ang label dapat na in-approve yung label nila na mayroong butter. Include lang na meron dapat na tamang adequate na qualifier. So si vegan kasi is a qualifier name na meaning wala siyang meat pero it can have a small amount of animal derivative products such as egg and milk. Another is lobbying against Real Meat Act. Ano ba tong Real Meat Act na to? Si Real Meat Act kasi is nilo-launch na dapat ang plant-based meat meron siyang qualifier na imitated or imitation. Kung ako siguro yung nasa kalagayan ng plant-based manufacturer, I would be concerned kasi having a label of imitated or imitation is like fake ang dating, di ba? So yun yung yun yung ipinaglalaban ngayon ng plant-based foods. Using a positive approach of plant-based qualifier, mas maganda pong maibibigay na ehemplo ng isang plant-based foods. Based in USA, Plant-Based Food Association in partnership with NSF designed or developed a standard wherein they can provide adequate labeling qualifiers for the plant-based meat products. Labels should clearly indicate the products in plant-based or vegetarian by using one or more following words or phrases or comparable qualifier. Samples of which is plant-based, vegan, meatless, meat-free, vegetarian, veggie, made in plants, or veggie-based. The terms described above should appear either in the statement or statement of identity or otherwise in a prominent position on the principal display panel. Kung titignan niyo po yung nasa presentation ko, makikita niyo po yung sample ng tamang paglalagay ng qualifiers at ng labels sa loob sa inyong packaging material. So if you want your products to have a Plant-Based Food Association logo, you must comply or must pass the evaluation of NSF. So once na napasa niyo yung evaluation, you can adapt or you can use the logo of the PBFA. Here in the Philippines, there's no, if we'll refer to AO 2014-0030 o yung tinatawag nating Philippine Labeling Guidelines, walang specific or no specific plant-based labeling guidelines pertaining for plant-based foods. Ang nakikita ko lang na mayroong pinaka connection is that yung statement na naka-indicate sa AO 2014-0030 is that illegal for any food label to be misleading, false, or deceptive. Tama naman. So, adequate or appropriate qualifier must be addressed or must be included on the labeling para ma-distinguish ang plant-based sa regular product item. Kasi kung ako bibili ng isang plant-based meat, tapos may product sa shelf na mayroong meat at saka plant-based meat. So paano pag hindi maganda o hindi tama ang labeling ng isang plant-based meat product, magkakaroon tayo ng confusion sa market. So ang ganda naman ng approach ng mga manufacturers at saka mga producers dito sa Pilipinas. They are proactive even wala pa po tayong talagang defined na standards o guidelines for plant-based foods. They adapt already the US requirements. Kung i-base ko naman, i-compare ko naman sa China, plant-based meat products can be called also meat or other meat terms. Pero they have additional qualifying terms such as artificial, imitated, and plant-based as compared with the US na hindi sila gumagamit ng word artificial or imitated. So, as we go now, we are now heading to our main topic, packaging innovations and certifications for sustainable claims. So on my few slides, I will be giving some definitions para magkaintindihan tayo, no? So what is green living? Based on EPA definition o yung EPA definition, green living means making sustainable choices. Sa amin sa packaging industry, in our case, it's sustainable packaging about what we eat, what we buy, and how we use and dispose it. What is sustainable packaging? In reference to sustainablepackaging.org, sustainable packaging refers to the sourcing, development, and use of packaging solutions that have minimal impact, environmental impact, and footprint. Why we are gearing towards green? So, based on EPA data 2004, 80 million tons of packaging waste are gone in each year. Kalahati nun, single-serve packaging. So, isipin na lang po natin paano yung na-accumulate na basura natin o na-accumulate na packaging material na hindi agad nagba-biodegrade. Based on these graphs, so makikita natin ang distribution ng packaging waste every 1,000 tons. And on the upper illustration shows the biodegradation of each type of packaging. So from the famous sando bag na madalas gamitin sa market na 50 years bago matunaw, up to PET bottles na umaabot ng 500,000. 500 years pala, sorry. 500 years. So imagine niyo na lang yung build up ng waste dyan na hindi natutunaw. So yun yung purpose of gearing towards green. Green packaging is beneficial, safe, and healthy for people, competitive in pricing and performance, energy efficient, and materials are being optimized. Why use of sustainable packaging becoming a norm? Bakit na siya kailangan? Dati option lang siya. Company's commitment to sustainable development goals on 2020, 2030, and social responsibility. So majority kasi ng nasa G8 na mga countries, they implement sustainable development goals. So para makahabol ang industry, such as Unilever, McDonald's, they starting up sustainable projects or sustainable policy guidelines. As early as 2025, McDonald's promise of 100% sustainability products, packaging materials on their QSR stores. While Unilever, as early as 2015, already launches their sustainability objectives and having their packaging at 2025 100% sustainable. Target market of is Gen Z and millennials buy products with sustainable story, and in anticipation with Philippines and UK government's environmental mandate of eliminating single-use plastic on our country. So, ibig sabihin, papunta na po sa pag-alis ng plastic at saka single-serve packaging ang UK at ang Pilipinas. So, following na po sa tradition si Coca-Cola, Nestle, and also the others such as young brands. In relation to last slide, sabi nga nila si millennials daw masyadong conscious na sa mga bagay-bagay. So pag nakita po natin dito sa breakdown ng statistical, so 51% of millennials always check their labels and sustainability claims. So meron na silang kamalayan, sabi nga nila may kamalayan na ang mga bata ngayon. And 70% of all consumers are likely to be influenced by environmentally friendly packaging. 39% of consumers always often look for environmental information of beverage packaging. 70% of the consumers have purchased an environmentally friendly product even with cost more. Ibig sabihin, ang tao willing to spend more para lang maka-support sa sustainability. And 66% of consumers have avoided particular product or brand with environmental issues. So as we go along, I will discuss types of our classifications of packaging innovations for green living. I sub it into two, so material at saka design and process. So material, it can be coming from sustainable material, recyclable material, or renewable material. So I will be sharing some samples of each later on. Next is design and process, wherein there's an energy efficient processes, clean manufacturing, and healthy living. I will discuss it one by one later on this afternoon. Let's start with material. For sustainable materials, there's some two types I will present it to you guys. Certified paper material and certified bioplastic material. Sabi nila, bakit ba kailangan maging sustainable yung material? Ako bilang packaging manufacturer, the easiest approach to make your packaging material sustainable is using material already tagged as sustainable. So madali nang i-convert. So from well-managed source, o kung halimbawa pag papel, well-managed forest or paper, follows also the local and international legal requirements, and it must be traceable. Sige, simulan natin sa paper material. So kapag papel po kasi, not all forests are proven being sustainably managed. So dito kasi sa Pilipinas, as per my knowledge, wala tayong allowed na legal logging kasi we have a total log ban, di ba? But in other countries, especially in Europe, they have what we call manageable forest management. So not all forests are proven to being sustainably managed. So ano yung proof para maging makita nating mga buyers ng papel na manage o galing sa sustainable forest ang ating mga ginagamit? We need certifying bodies such as PEFC and FSC na dapat mag-prove na hindi lang ang forest owner but also the millers and converters must be socially and economically responsible. Paano ba ito nag-work? How does this certification work? So usually for paper, there's two leading certifying body, the PEFC and FSC. Kanina ko pa ito mini-mention, di ba? But their principle is like forest to shelf. So parang sa HACCP natin, from farm to fork. Ganon din yung concept niyan, from forest to shelves. So dapat ang pinagkukunan natin ng pulp, which is the raw material for paper, must be certified. Yung tinatawag nating forest management system. So upon paper making or paper production, yung tinatawag nating paper milling, dapat yung kukuha ng pulp from a responsible forest must also be certified, meaning following all the 10 criteria of responsible sourcing and management of stocks. So paper making and converting. So converting, ito na yung paper manufacturer, ito na yung packaging manufacturer. So upon production of the packaging, dapat manage din yung pag-handle niya. Traceable pa rin magmula sa forest, hanggang sa miller, hanggang sa converter. And then, bago siya mapunta sa shelves, wherein yung nakikita na po natin sa market na mayroong mga logo, the printers must specifically label their products or adopt the labels of FSC and PEFC according to the requirements. So makikita natin yung pag-follow ng traceability hanggang makarating yan sa shelves. Same concept with the FSC. So yung tinatawag nilang forest management system, and then to the converters and millers as chain of custody up to the end users. So kanina pa ako FSC at PEFC, sino ba sila? Simulan natin kay FSC o yung tinatawag natin Forest Stewardship Council. The FSC is an international certification and labeling system that guarantees the paper and wood products carrying the FSC label come from environmentally and socially responsible source. So yan yung kanyang ideology. Some of its patrons is TerraPak, kung familiar kayo kay TerraPak. PepsiCo, the famous Tropicana, and McDonald's. If you'll see ba, actually yung nakikita niyo po is our artwork product na wherein makikita niyo siya sa April 2021. Makikita niyo na po yung mga, kung ma-observe niyo po yung mga cups po ng McDo, mayroon na po siyang FSC logo. So isa siya sa patron ng FSC. Ito naman si PEFC. So Forest Program for Endorsement of Forest Certification, o PEFC for short. PEFC works throughout the entire forest supply chain to promote good practice in the forest and ensure that timber and non-timber forest products are produced with respect for the highest ecological, social, and ethical standards. Pansinin niyo yung pagkakapareho nila. They really patron the ecological, social, and ethical balance of the company na nagpapa-certify. Yun yung tinitignan. So they ensure that compliance with ecology, area of responsibility, social compliance, wherein yung paano tayo makipag-engage sa tao, hanggang sa ethical requirements. So ibig sabihin, responsible business management. So PEFC's distinctive green trees logo make it truly global brand and means customers and consumers are able to identify products from sustainably managed forest. So makikita ninyo kung if you're buying or patronizing Dunkin' Donuts products on their 12 dozen boxes, makikita nyo po meron silang PEFC logo. They are the first one to launch it here in the Philippines sa QSR. And KFC in abroad, they're using PEFC as their packaging certifier. Another type of sustainable material is the bio-based plastic material. Plant-based plastic, or commonly known as bioplastic, as they are commonly referred to us are innovative new materials that carry similar properties and benefits to traditional plastics. A bioplastic is made of plant source compared to traditional plastic, which is made of petroleum. So kung makikita nyo po, may sample po tayo dyan sa presentation na showing a lunch bag made of cornstarch instead of plastic. Another is this tube for facial wash. Instead of regular PP plastic, they use sugar cane as their source of plastic. So if you want your product to have a claim or yung certification, they can carry a logo of bio-based OK on their packaging material, you have to ask for services of BINCode to certify your products. Meron iba-ibang kasing range yan ng percent composition. It can range from 20 to more than 80%. Another type of material, sustainable material is the recyclable material. Recycled packaging, this is a packaging made of materials that can be used over again, usually after processing. Recyclable materials includes glass, metal, card, paper, and also some plastics. However, by far, the most common form of recycled or recycled packaging is the corrugated box. So meron dalawang klase, pre-consumer and post-consumer. So usually, for packaging material, we use post-consumer, o ibig sabihin converted na as recycled paper as our packaging source. So bibiling ko na yung materials as recycled, as made of recycled paper. So para maging sustainable yung packaging ko. Some also packaging material for plastic, they recycle their plastic pre-consumer. So pwede yun, yung babalik lang siya sa process, parang incorporation ba. You can also ask for verification and certification through Green Circle. Another type of sustainable materials is the for renewable material packaging. This differentiate the compostable to biodegradable packaging. So compostable refers to the item that microbes can break down into a rate of consistent with compostable materials with the right level of heat, water, and oxygen. So dapat meron siyang controlled supply. An important aspect of being considered compostable is that the item can break down over a reasonable period of time, over a controlled period of time also. So you have, meron tayong test para ma-assess natin ang compostability ng isang packaging material using European standard EN 13432. So dapat yung physical composition of the product must be 90% compostable after 12 weeks and can pass through a 2 by 2 mm mesh. So ibig sabihin dapat in 12 weeks or 3 months dapat 90% compostable na siya para makapasa sa standard na yan. And dapat during chemical analysis it must be containing low levels of heavy metal o mas maganda wala. So it can, and dapat after 12 weeks, dapat usable na siya as compost material. For biodegradable packaging, means that it can degrade from the action of natural occurring microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, or algae. Into itself, the term biodegradable makes it no claim as to the amount of time needed for degradation and or the attributes of the end of product. Ibig sabihin, compare natin yung dalawa. Si compostable kasi may limit, meron siyang control temperatures, meron siyang control time. Unlike si biodegradable, wala siyang limit. Kumbaga, mas matagal kasi si biodegradable eh. So to check the biodegradability of the product, dapat makapasa siya sa ISO 14855-2012 or EN 14046-2003. So ito isasubject siya sa tests. Meron siyang controlled at meron yung actual sample natin. And i-compare yung biodegradability nila in 3 to 6 months. Dapat para makapasa ka sa ganitong testing, dapat at least after 6 months, more than 90% nag-biodegrade na yung item. And at the same time, there's no detection ng heavy metals. Hindi siya harmful. Totally safe siya. So, actually, yung produkto namin, hindi namin kaya yung 6 months. So, what we did is we use also the ASTM DM5511. So, dito naman, iti-check yung biodegradability without a time limit, without a given months of degradation. So, in-evaluate namin kailan magba-biodegrade talaga yung packaging namin using additive. So, we computed na around, based on the data given, is around 2 to 5 years bago siya totally mag-biodegrade, 100% biodegrade. So, kung titignan natin, mas malaki pa rin factor yung ganong kaliit na degradation than 500 years. So, meron na po nito sa local. So if you want your product to be certificated, you can go to D.A.W.N.ing for certification. Basta ma-comply lang natin tong EN standards na ito. So to sum it up, so meron kasing different biodegradability and compostability certifications. So pag compost kasi meron talagang tinatawag na dalawang klase ng compostability. Merong industrial at merong home compost. So pag industrial, ito yung environment na itatapon or ilalagay yung packaging sa isang commercial composting facility. Unlike pag home compost, pwede mong i-compost yung packaging sa loob ng yung backyard. So using the test standards based on ASTM or international standards, basta ma-comply mo yung requirement, you can apply for certification on TUV or in BPI. For biodegradability naman, if you want to have a claim using you want to have a logo on your packaging material, halimbawa, itong packaging ko, gusto ko lagyan, first, 100% biodegradable or okay biodegradable. You can also apply for biodegradable, okay biodegradable through TUV Australia also. Meron kasing tatlong klase ng biodegradability test. It can be landfill, marine, or water. So meron namang given standards referring kailangang i-comply bago ka ma-certify. Wherein you can refer to ASTM or ISO 16022-2211. So tapos na tayo dun sa part 1 which is the material. We go on to the design and processes. We have 3 types: energy efficient, clean manufacturing, and healthy material. So we'll start with energy efficient processes. I have one example of energy efficient process. So ito yung minimal design packaging. Minimal packaging design, when it possible, the best packaging design involves a little packaging as possible. So ang dilemma natin ngayon is to seek ways to lessen, to lighten our packaging material use. So may iba nga dyan, di ba, kung nasa food manufacturing, dinedevelop nila usually is to lessen their consumption of packaging materials. So a best example of which is this type of packaging material, yung tinatawag nilang tapeless technology packaging material. So applicable to sa retail stores at saka sa mga transporting items. Yung design nila is they just use gum paper as their packaging material. So ano yung natanggal dyan? Yung paggamit ng tape. Packaging tape itself is a part of packaging material. So kung aalisin mo yon, yung consumption of energy of using the packaging tape and at the same time the packaging tape itself, mas malilesen siya. Malilesen ng consumption mo, mas malilesen din yung waste mo. Another part of designing processes is the clean manufacturing. Ito very famous to at kahit tayo sa bahay ginagawa natin to. We do reusable packaging. Reusable packaging is a packaging that is used multiple times, often for purpose of transporting products. It is typically designed for durability, ease of use, ease of cleaning, and ease of repair, and ideally collapsible or netsible. All of those characteristics make it easy to return to the original user, which can be utilized over and over again. Sample of which is pallets, pallet collars, handheld containers, bulk containers, drums, totes, and tanks, boxes, dunnage, wraps, and straps. Actually, di ba sa bahay natin, we do reuse yung mga packaging material na binibili natin. Halimbawa sa ice cream, di ba? Yung basyo ng ice cream na mga galon, di ba nire-reuse natin siya sa bahay? It is the easiest way of reusing our packaging material. Sa manufacturing at sa commissary, we usually use crates to transport our goods to stores. Tama po. So that is being reused. So nalilimit natin yung paggamit ng single-serve packaging dun. So in our manufacturing facility, it is a win-win situation with us and our business partners to use a reusable box to transport our packaging materials to their facilities. This would less us cost and at the same time support the managing our waste. Kasi managing ng waste namin and at the same time managing ng waste ng aming kliyente. It saves them at least 10%, we make our client happy and at the same time ours happy. So, and also, nag-launch na rin sa mga QSRs yung paggamit ng reusable packaging. Halimbawa si Burger King, they're planning to launch in 2021 reusable packaging onto their stores. Also, kung kayo ay umiinom sa mga coffee shops, di ba, minsan tinatanong tayo kung meron kayong cup o wala. That's also a type of reusable packaging. Kasi they will limit of use of cups. Mahal din kaya yun, di ba? Another or the last type of designing process packaging is the healthy material packaging. Edible packaging is an edible things and coatings may be arbitrarily defined as thin layers of material that can be eaten by the consumer as part of the whole food product. When a packaging like film, sheet, or thin layer of coating is an integral part of the food and eaten with it, it is qualified as edible packaging. Nung mga bata-bata pa tayo, nung mga panahong 80s and early 90s, kung inabot nyo po yung tinatawag nating nougat na candy, na meron siyang parang thin layer na cellophane na nakabalot at pwedeng kainin. Also, yung tinatawag nating white rabbit, meron din pong ganong candy. So, ito yung mga samples ng edible packaging. Another is si KFC. They launched edible cups in Europe, wherein imbes na plastic cups ang ginagamit nilang to serve their colas, they use edible cups as an alternative. Another type of healthy packaging is the plantable packaging. So napaka-unique, di ba? In Europe, they have this packaging material which incorporates seeds and allow the packaging material to be buried in the soil and disintegrate while flowers or herbs are flourishing. So halimbawa nito is si Pangea Organics. Merong seed na pong naka-incorporate doon sa packaging nila. So pag tinapon yung packaging, it can easily disintegrate and grows with flowers. So merong tutubong bulaklak. Hindi siya totally kalat. To summarize my discussion, choose a packaging material that is sustainable when it's taken to the context of your application, business needs, consumer demands, and environment. In conclusion, with the current trends in shifting to more sustainable and eco-friendly packaging, the way we approach our packaging is set to grow and change. Rather than being an option, sustainable packaging is becoming more important. Hindi na siya option, but rather a norm, a requirement. So dapat pumunta na tayo at suportahan natin ang sustainable packaging. Leaving you with this discussion with 4 laws of ecology. Everything is connected to everyone else. Everything must go somewhere. Nature knows best. There's no such free lunch in this world. So lahat yan bumabalik sa nature. So that's my photo credits and also the references. Also taking my opportunity to thank my classmates here in PWU for assisting me, our professors, my RCL team and family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dayan, for that engaging discussion and for sharing your know-how about the topic. We will now move to our 10-minute question and answer sessions. For questions regarding the presentation, please type it on the comment box and Ms. Dayan will try to answer them. So, Ms. Dayan, are you ready? For our first question, Ms. Dayan, the sachet economy is The sachet economy is one of the main reasons of plastic pollution in the country. Are these studies being undertaken to improve the design of sachet to reduce the environmental impact? Let me repeat the question. The sachet company economy is one of the main reasons of plastic pollution in the country. Are there studies being undertaken to improve the design of sachet to reduce the environmental impact?
Yes, actually. Meron tayong kasi ang sachet is a multi-layered packaging na iba-iba yung klase ng polymer. So at hindi siya recyclable pagka ganun magkakaiba ng composition. Actually we have a product or developing product na may tatayo kami this 2021 end of the year is that yung monopolymer plastic, wherein we lessen the composition and make it pareho. Halimbawa, parehong PP o parehong PE, ilalaminate siya. So, mas magiging recyclable ang packaging mo pagka ganun parehong mono, yung tinatawag nating monopolymer. Layered pa rin siya ng iba-ibang ng plastics to make the product more shelf stable but on similar items. And also, dapat, usually sa amin, technology ko to, no? Pero adding biodegradable additive to make it more biodegradable and sustainable. So yun yung magiging answer namin sa sachet problem.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dayan. For our next question from Ms. Louverbril de los Reyes, where is the Philippines in terms of sustainability practice compared to other countries? Let me repeat the question. Where is the Philippines in terms of sustainability practice compared to other countries?
Actually, medyo left behind tayo as compared with Europe. Sabi nga nila medyo mahirap ang disiplina, no? So, but ando naman na yung kamalayan, medyo nag-i-improve ang tao ngayon. Sabi nga natin, based dun sa data ko, sa statistics, majority of the millennials are aware and buhay yung kamalayan nila sa sustainability requirements. So, kung magkakaroon ang government ng stricter implementation pagdating sa discipline sa tao, yung sa tamang, kasi kailangan kasi kahit gaano ka sustainable o ka biodegrade ang ating packaging, kung itatapon-tapon lang natin saan-saan, it's nonsense. So dapat yung disiplina doon maumpisahan. And at the same time, let's patronize yung mga business na nagpapatronize ng ecological friendly packaging. Kasi kasi alam naman natin pare-pareho na mas cost saving yung mga regular packaging eh. But and mag-i-invest ka ng more if you want your packaging to be more sustainable. But in the long run, yung kabalit nun, so yung returns ng mas konti yung ima-manage na waste, and at the same time, syempre umpisa nag-i-invest ka ng machineries. But in the long run, kung may magtatangkilik ng ganong environmental sustainability, mas magwi-willing ang mga manufacturers ng packaging na mag-invest sa sustainable packaging.
Okay, moving on to our next question. Ms. D.A.W.N., in your opinion, should manufacturing companies be responsible for the post-consumer packaging waste from their products?
Actually, hindi lang yung manufacturers. It must be also the end users. Kasi kahit anong gawin na technology ng isang manufacturers, kung hindi disiplinado ang taong gumagamit, kailangan namang pati yung basura na ginamitan ng tao at basyo kung saan-saan ay pupulutin ng manufacturers. Ang technology, kaya nilang mag-develop. Kami pong bilang packaging manufacturer, we can develop more. We can think more kasi nasa amin ang technology. But hindi naman, ang sabi nga natin, glass is half full. So we will give the half of the glass. But the half of the glass dapat nasa end user. So hindi naman pwedeng develop lang kami ng develop. Dapat maging responsable rin ng end user.
Okay. So someone has asked, what are the cons of plant-based packaging in today's time?
I think kasi medyo papunta yung nasa na tayo sa zero plastics na tayo, di ba? So yung mga plastic manufacturers, including us, seeking ways na ma-maintain yung packaging kasi maganda po talaga, shelf-stable po talaga ang plastics. But to alternatives ang gagawin namin like yung plant-based o kaya bioadditives, adding of bioadditives o bioplastics para lang ma-maintain pa rin yung structure ng plastics and at the same time magiging eco-friendly siya. So I think papunta na po ang mga packaging manufacturers ng plastics sa genre na yan.
Okay. Next from Ms. Catherine May Gumabon, with all these sustainable packaging ideas, where is the Philippines in terms of implementation?
Actually, nagsisimula na po ang mga big companies here in the Philippines. They're starting up. Medyo mabagal lang kasi as early as 2015, Unilever already pledges ng sustainable packaging sa kanilang packaging material. And also McDonald's, they're pushing it. Pero syempre, it incurs cost. So investment on the manufacturers and also the consumers. So papunta na po sila dyan. So I think they're targeting the 2025 commitment. So I think the pledge is papunta na talaga doon. Give us 5 years.
I think this is our last question, Dan. So if I am a manufacturer on non-sustainable packaging, how much will it cost for me to shift to sustainable packaging, especially biodegradable ones?
Depende kung anong klase ng technology ang i-adapt mo. Sa amin kasi medyo malaki because I cannot divulge the amount, but medyo significant. So it is not only hindi lang pera but also the commitment of the owners to support the initiative. Kasi kung pera ang titignan natin, ayoko mag-invest. But rather the future. You invest on the future. So hindi na tinignan ng management namin ang pera, but rather the future of the next generation. So medyo malaki talaga. But nandun tayo papunta tayo, sasabay tayo. Tulungan din natin.
Okay, Ms. Dayan. I think another question from Chef Brian. How do we choose lesser evil? packaging with this environmental impact. Example, for the people in the hotels, restaurants, and cafes. Cooked food needs to be stored before cooking and serving. Let me repeat the question.
Yes, okay.
So how do we choose the lesser evil packaging with the least environmental impact? For the people in the hotels, restaurants, and cafes, cooked food needs to be restored before recooking and serving.
Okay, magandang question yan. So, we can use packaging material na pwedeng reheatable. Yung hindi yung single serve. Yung pwede mo siyang i-reuse over and over. You can also use other alternatives such as if you do some takeouts, dapat use than plastic, you use paper. So, kasi mas natutunaw siya kaysa sa plastic. O kung plastic man, make sure that it's at least OXO or at least biodegradable. So, in commissaries, you use at least yung mga reusable Tupperwares natin o kaya yung mga reusable ceramics natin to store or to reheat our items. So, baga, isip. Baga, let's be more yung idea natin is ilawak natin. Yung aside sa makatipid tayo is yung hindi tayo makakatapon masyado.
Okay, questions are coming in, Ma'am Dayan.
Sige lang, go.
Another question from Sir Kenneth Mendozado. So you think that the ban for single-use plastics will be postponed since the pandemic has given us renewed perception about plastics?
I think sige, tuloy mo.
Let me repeat the question. Do you think the ban for single-use plastics will be postponed since this pandemic has given renewed perception about plastics?
I think it's not. Para ma-push ang manufacturers to go into sustainability. Kasi kung, di ba, a law is a law. So if you're gonna ban it, sayang lang yung effort of implementing it. So, might as well ituloy nila para ang manufacturers, there's no reason to comply, na hindi siya magpo-comply. But rather, seek ways to make their packaging material, their plastic material, more sustainable. I know some other packaging manufacturers, plastic manufacturers like us, seeking ways to na ma-maintain sila sa business. So, one of which is going to sustainable packaging.
Thank you. Ms. Mir?
Thank you, Ms. Diana Samson, for answering all our questions. And for our participants who still have questions, you may send them to our official email address, pwfoodtrends2021@gmail.com. Ms. Diana and our team will try to answer them. Okay, so going back to our Q&A game. Let us see if we get the correct answer. The correct answer is letter A, plant-based packaging. So congratulations to Chara Lu Press, Warmelis Bagayo, and Mr. Raymond Josinco Banzuela for winning 100 pesos worth of load. Our team will get in touch with you through email and text message. To facilitate our last Q&A game, I will turn it to Ms. Hani. Ms. Hani?
Thank you, Ms. Mir. So for our last Q&A game, please click the link at the video description or you can scan the QR code flashed on your screen. Click the link and fill it up with your email address, full name, mobile number, and your answer to the question. So the question is, what is sustainable diet? Is it letter A, diet with low environmental impacts which contribute to food and nutrition security and healthy life to present and future generations? Letter B, diet such as vegan only. Letter C, diet pertaining to health concern. Or letter D, diet that can sustain present only. So you guys have 4 choices to choose from. Cutoff of entries is 20 minutes after the start of the talk of our last speaker. 3 winners will be chosen to win 100 pesos worth of load using the Google random number generator. We will reveal the answer after our speaker's discussion, so stay tuned. Ms. Mir?
Thank you, Ms. Hani. Now, we are down to our last speaker. After our 2 speakers' discussion about the regulatory aspects and food packaging in line with plant-based foods, we will go on the environmental effect. Let me introduce to you our last speaker. She graduated in Bicol University with bachelor's degree in food technology. She was assigned as quality assurance supervisor in Max Bakery Corner and continues her career as production supervisor in Snow Mountain Corporation. And now, currently working as a regulatory executive in Poratos Philippines Incorporation. She works on the technical side with regards to regulatory requirement of the different government agencies. To talk over about plant-based sustainability and effect on environment from Team Food Science. Here is Ms. Cristina Cana.
Yes, good afternoon, dear participants from the academe, from the food manufacturers, from our participants, students, as well as from different sectors. So our speaker a while ago had discussed the sustainability in packaging. So we now come with sustainability of plant-based food and its effect on the environment. So will going back to plant-based diet worldwide be a reasonable alternative for a sustainable future? So let's all find out in the upcoming slides. So here are the topic outlines. So the sustainable diet we would discuss. So the key dimensions of the environmental sustainability, the production and consumption pattern. So the efficiency, animal versus the plant foods, as well as the benefits when moving away from animal products. Another is the environmental indicators, the issues and challenges on sustainability, mainly plant versus meat, the population, our health concerns, and lastly is the biodiversity. So first, let's define what are sustainable diets. So according to FAO, it's defined as those diets with low environmental impacts which contribute to food, nutrition, security, and to healthy life for present and future generations. So nearly this definition tackles about the balance. So another definition, according to the American Journal, is that sustainable diet is protective and respectful of the biodiversity and ecosystem, because we must respect what we get out of those raw materials coming from the environment. So it's also culturally acceptable because we have different beliefs when it comes to sustainable diets. It's also accessible. It's economically fair and affordable. It's nutritionally adequate, wherein it can suffice every individual's needs. So it's also safe, as discussed in the previous webinar. It's free from the physical, the biological, the chemical, and the allergen. It is also healthy. So let's discuss the key dimensions of the environmental sustainability. So number one, the efficient use of natural resources. So when we get from our environment, we must see to it that we give back. Like for example, if we cut trees, we must also plant trees. So another is the avoidance of the environmental degradation, because this is our main concern. So here you can see the current food production and consumption patterns. So as you can see here, there are input and output. So in input, that comes from the natural resources, and another input is the societal demands, which are the consumer preferences to be able for the manufacturers to come up with a product on the food system. So the output would be the food which are available in the market shelves that you buy from the grocery stores. But our main concern here is the waste emission that comes or pollutes our air, the land, and also the water. So we come to efficiency. So animal compared with plant-based food. So number one, it's 11 times greater fossil fuels. So this fossil fuels also has or emits carbon dioxide from the environment. So some of the main contributors, as many journals says, that coming from almost 50% comes from the dairy manufacturers or the animal farmhouses. So the second is it's 6 to 17 times greater land because of the farmhouses being built because of the higher demand of people for meat and dairy products. So what are the benefits when moving away from the production of animal products? So number one is that it reduces the negative effects on the environment and global warming. So we also become part of the solution because we lessen our consumption when it comes to eating meat and dairy products. So it could also be used to feed the growing population because some of the lands that are planted with these crops like corn are being fed to those cows or cattle instead of giving these crops to feed the hungry population. So another environmental indicator is that the emission of the greenhouse gases. So this carbon dioxide, when emitted to the atmosphere, it forms a blanket. So this produces the high rise of the temperature causing the global warming. So another is that 10 kilograms carbon dioxide equivalents per kilogram of product is meat or dairy food. Also, it's coming from mostly from the dairy industry. So another environmental indicator is that it damages the environment by chemical runoff to water and land and animal waste. So it also causes acidification. So this acidification, the carbon dioxide enters the water, which reacts to the water molecules that produces the carbonic acid. So another is the algal bloom, which is called the eutrophication or the overgrowth of the algae because of the too much nutrients like the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium. So this also, the dead zones, is the low oxygen demand. So another is the soil quality degradation. So another is the habitat change, like for example, the fish from the seas, wherein they have the feeding and breeding ground. So if waters are being polluted, so they migrate to another surface of the water. So another environmental indicator is that it requires high inputs of non-renewable natural resources and growth-promoting antibiotics. So mostly manufacturers uses non-renewable energies, like for example, coal. So this also emits carbon dioxide in the air. So another is that promoting antibiotics. These meats, like for example chicken, are being injected with antibiotics. So they are their growth is being fastened. Like for example, it's 45 days for chicken, but it would just take 30 days for them to grow. So this has also health effects for us humans when we ingest these antibiotics to our body. So another is that almost more than 80% of all the greenhouse gas emission from the food sector and almost 24% of all the greenhouse gas emission. So mostly, preferably, as the journals or other researches, they pertain this to the manufacturers of meat and dairy products. But other journals also says that it's coming also from, like for example, from the farmhouses, from the vehicles, from other sectors, like for example, the energy. So as you can see here, another environmental indicator. So a quarter of global emission that comes from food is 26%. So more than half of food emission come from animal products, which is 58%. And half of all farmed animal emission that is coming from the lamb and the beef is, it says 50%. So here in the Philippines, there are restaurants as well who are serving meat of lamb. So in Quezon City and Makati, there are available restaurants that serve that kind of meat. So another is that agriculture and food production is responsible for almost more than 25% of all the greenhouse gas emissions. So imagine if this daily food manufacturers or other sectors na nag-emit ng carbon dioxide. So this greenhouse gas effect na nagkakaroon ng factor wherein global warming is, we are already experiencing such global warming. Like for example of this global warming are the heat waves, which we already experienced way back from the years. So the droughts as well, the heavier rainfall and the typhoons, as well as the powerful hurricanes. So another environmental indicator is the animal waste has become public health problem and environmental hazard because this animal waste has pathogenic bacteria or zoonotic bacteria wherein they consist of the nitrous oxide when polluted or being emitted in the water or streams or lakes and being consumed by humans. So it's it has a health effect, especially those immunocompromised, yung mga children and old age. So we come to the issues and challenges on sustainability. So the number one challenge here is to reduce meat and dairy consumption because we now know that, like for example, tayo, we would not be able to shift, like for example, if we are a meat eater and shift dun sa vegan diet or plant-based diet agad. So it's not that easy to shift. So incremental step is very important that could be extremely helpful in solving the food availability and sustainability challenges because these incremental steps, when grouped into solutions, like for example, becomes the major factor wherein we could help the environment or lessen our carbon emission. So another challenge for sustainability is that the decreasing consumption of meat and other animal products will free up large amounts of food that could be or that could consume directly by humans. So achieving food security and sustainability. So for us, we have this major role also na dapat gampanan, like for example, by reducing our diets through, like for example, eating more of the vegetables and fruits wherein they are locally produced. So here, for the sustainability of plant-based versus meat, so here at your left, you can see the Beyond Burger. It's composed of the plant-based, the burger patty, versus the beef burger at your right. So it says here that it's 99% less water, it's 93% less land, so 90% fewer greenhouse gas emission, and almost 46% less energy. So another is that here in sustainability, I have here a table wherein meat versus plant-based food is being compared when it comes to protein and water use. So here, like for example, 1 pound of beef that would be equivalent to 90 to 100 grams of protein versus the 1 pound tofu, wherein you could get 45 to 55 grams of protein. The water usage for the beef would be 80 gallons compared to the water usage of tofu and processing tofu, which is only 6 gallons. So we as individuals must choose kung ano ba talaga yung mas makaka-help sa environment and for us people. So here, why plant-based is more sustainable? So number one, it uses fewer natural resources. So it's also less taxing on the environment. So it's also good for our health, not just for the environment. So it also reduces carbon emission and waste byproducts. So it would also reduce our water use because almost 50% of the fresh water are being used by the farmhouses for those who are producing meat or dairy products. So another environmentally unsustainable is that the United Nations Food Agriculture Organization, or the FAO, estimates that around 30% of the land indirectly used is used in the production of the livestock. So another is that almost 70% in the Amazon forest is already converted to cattle pasture land. That results in the loss of biodiversity. So another concern is that when it comes to population, so by 2050, the world's population is expected to plateau at 9 billion. So a 28% increase from the current 7 billion. So imagine the population that the world's going to feed. So as the demand for food becomes higher, and so is the production of the food manufacturers to be able to supply that certain demand. So if the demand for meat becomes higher, syempre yung mga manufacturers for meat and dairy products would produce more. So when it comes to health concerns naman, so most plant-based diets are healthier than meat-based diets and yield greater longevity and lower chronic diseases among those consume vegetarian diets. And these are being shown by many research that patients, including healthy diets such as the plant-based diets in their meals, lowers their cholesterol and even chronic diseases. So here, as you can see in your left, it's a food pyramid of the traditional diet versus at your right, it's the nutritionally improved. So you can compare that the nutritionally improved is mainly composed of the leafy greens, legumes, nuts, and seeds, while the traditional is composed of yung major niya is carbohydrates. Next, please. So here, as you can see, by Harvard University, they have launched this healthy eating plate. So as you can see, almost 3/4 of the plate is composed of the vegetables, the fruits, and whole grains, and some of the healthy protein, which wherein this healthy eating plate we can use as a guide. So here, another health concern, you can see here at your right, those are the patients having problems in their health, like they're obese, they have chronic diseases, health or heart issues. So the global economy stands to lose up to 1.6 trillion by 2050 if these concerns are not being corrected. Because, like for example, if persons have this health problems or health concerns, the government would suffice that money para makorek yung mismo mga health concerns. So, like for example, if these patients or if these people try to have at least plant-based diet on their daily meal, so they could have saved at least 320,000 lives, and as well as they would cut the money for other purposes in the government. So it's also linked, so definitely environment always linked with biodiversity. So what is biodiversity? So biodiversity is the variety of life in the world or in a particular habitat or ecosystem. So now the modern food system is widely based on a very low diversity of cultivated food crops and cultivar breeds, and apparent but limited variety of foodstuffs purchased, processed, and consumed. Because nowadays, as new technology arises, and so is the processed food as well. So next one is that another effects of biodiversity, that it reduces genetic diversity of our diets, because through time, we people have also shifted to different consumption pattern through our diet. So another, it affects health and nutrition because of these booming processed foods. Na-affect din yung health natin because most of these processed foods do not contain nutrients Kasi most of us would go to the grocery store and would just pick up whatever they want, yung mismo halimbawa, yung gusto nila, without even checking those nutritional labels. So it also eroded ecological landscape kasi nga more of the farmhouses are being built because of the demand for meat and dairy products. So it also extremely fragile to any climatic, socio-economic, and political as well as financial. So another effects on biodiversity is that the alarming pace of food biodiversity loss as we experience now. So the ecosystem degradation because of the, like for example, the activities of illegal logging that causes flood and soil erosion. So it has impact on poverty and health as well. So we must re-examine the food agricultural system and our diet as well. So when it comes to biodiversity, plant-based diets in terms of local cultivation, so to produce locally, most staple food is best way to ensure food security and to avoid disturbances due to the globalization and international uncertainties. So implication as well is to grow production in season with minimal inputs to improve sustainability because like for example, when our local farmers plant or crops in season, minimal na lang yung like for example, they would add up chemicals or nutrients because the temperature, the quality of the soil is enough to produce such quality crop. So this would stimulate the search for adapted species and varieties and thus increase cultivated biodiversity, especially here in the Philippines that we have a lot of local and indigenous crops. So here is a sustainable example. So one is the reintroduction of the indigenous vegetables. So like I said a while ago that there are a lot of local food crops here in the Philippines that could be planted by our local farmers. So bringing back native cereals to improve farming technologies and to allow the production of these nutritious foods to not only be maintained, but to develop further and enter international markets. Like for example of this product is the adlay, wherein they are already planted in part of Mindanao, Cotabato. And another is that there are a lot of Filipinos na globally. So why not give our farmers the benefit na they could farm and harvest all those crops where thereby our government could also help the farmers to be able for these local products to be exported to other countries. So another sustainable example is the case study of the community conservation in Kenya, wherein they plant these indigenous plants and give such activities to the children. They do also the feeding program to help the community. So another is the case study of seed banking, wherein they collect these indigenous seeds for the future to be able for the other generations to see it, for the farmers to grow this type of indigenous seeds. So we come to the promotion of the PBDs or the plant-based diets and biocultural diversity. So number one, diversity of life includes human cultures and languages because way back before our ancestors are already diversified in their environment. So it also exists between biodiversity and cultural diversity because they have this respect with the environment. So these links have developed over time through natural adaptation and possibly co-evolution because human and environment goes hand in hand. So what is really the issue? So it's the separation of nature from human culture in the conservation of both nature and heritage. So we must also keep in mind that there are a lot of new technologies that are coming up, especially in the production, but there are also cleaner way on how to produce or to tackle that processes. So another is that the traditional diets containing high proportion of lesser known and underutilized plant species are also rich in biodiversity. So another is that traditional diets are under threat in developing countries due to the anthropogenic factors, because these are human factors. So also our food systems are the result of thousands of years of the synergistic interaction between the biological and cultural resources. So what we experience now are based on that synergistic interaction way back before from our ancestors' right or wrongdoing. So yun yung na-experience natin now. So it's really, will going back to plant-based diet be the best way forward for a sustainable future? So this needs a lot of research and analysis as well, because some of the researches and journals says that 50% are claiming that it's from the animal and the dairy industry, but others are claiming na galing ito sa, like for example, sa mga farmhouses, sa farms, like for example, yung mga crops na pinaplant due to the fertilizers, sa households din, like for example, sa mga vehicles. So there are a lot of factors contributing to that carbon dioxide emission that leads to global warming. So thoughts to ponder. So plant-based diets, in comparison to diets rich in animal products, are more sustainable because they use fewer natural resources and are less taxing on the environment. So another is the changing course to avoid the collision will require extreme downward shifts in meat and dairy consumption by large segments of the world population, because generally, if all people, like for example, would shift to that plant-based diet, syempre yung mga manufacturers of the meat and the dairy production, malulugi sila. Kasi like for example, if all people now would shift to that plant-based diet, so yun yung magiging effect niya. So yun yung magiging mismong factor na makaka-affect din sa mga businesses. So although other approaches should be pursued, they are insufficient to make the global food system sustainable. So therefore, the dietary shift is an inevitable strategy. So in this thoughts to ponder, it's really on an individual's point of view, if he would choose this type of diet or this one, if he would want to help the environment or not. So it's really in your perception and belief. So what can we do to help the environment? So there are simple ways, and yet these simple ways, when added, gives a major factor on how we can help our carbon emission to the environment. So number one, give veggies more real estate. So like for example, including fruits and vegetables in our diet daily. So another is to choose lower impact animal products. Like for example, if you would go to the market and buy a type of meat, so you can choose chicken instead of beef because it has lower carbon emissions. So another is we must shop local, or we must also buy local products out of our local farmers. And also for us to help them in their livelihood, especially in their farming. So make your Mondays meatless. So here in the Philippines, we are very aware that during Friday, we basically go with Mongo. Or like for example, during Monday to Friday, you can choose or opt to eat fish and vegetables. And during Saturdays, you can just choose to eat meat. So whatever you prefer. So another is getting creative. So we Filipinos love to cook. So like for example, you want to cook pasta, instead of choosing ground beef or pork, you can substitute it with basil, tomato, and garlic. So there are a lot of ways for us to be able to help the environment. So in summary, so the challenge is to feed the growing population as well as sustaining the environment we live in. So there would be pros and cons. So, but we must always choose the best decision for humanity and the environment. So if the environment suffers, and so do we. So alam na natin yan ngayong panahon. So we must always choose in between and have a contingency plan. So the choice is really yours. So take your part and contribute. So educate yourself and be responsible, because with the right knowledge, we can choose the right path and the right answer to be able to contribute to the environment and for the sustainability. So these are my references, and thank you. I hope you have learned a thing or two from me. And thank you to Anne, to Kate, to Ma'am Debbie, and Ma'am Lynn, and to all the food safety and food science students.
Congratulations, Ms. Kate, for that enlightening session. To those who are interested to watch the replay of the webinar, please stay tuned to PWU Facebook page. We will now move to our 10-minute question and answer session. For questions regarding the presentation, you may type it on the comment box and Ms. Kate will try to answer them. Ms. Mir?
Thank you, Ms. Hani. So for our first question, from Mr. Brian Christian Gauja, do you recommend to genetically engineer indigenous crops to promote higher yields on crops, therefore more sustainable and stable supply of native crops? Okay, let me repeat the question. The question is from Mr. Brian. Do you recommend to genetically engineer indigenous crops to promote higher yield on crops, therefore more sustainable and stable supply of native crops?
For the genetically modified food crops, as of this moment, most of the manufacturers preferred or opt to go with the non-genetically modified, because this has been has an issue or a battling issue over the years, that food manufacturers prefer these non-genetically modified organisms. But dahil sa low supply of some of these food crops, other manufacturers opt to use non-genetically modified organisms. So it's basically would be different. Like for example, if this manufacturer opt to choose this one and not to choose this one. So it's really the choice of the manufacturers to be able for them to produce such product. Like for example, if they would opt to go with the GMO or the non-GMO.
Thank you, Ms. Cristina. So for the second question, from Ms. Donna Bautista. There were problems recently about overproduction of tomatoes and squash from the Benguet area, wherein those produced were thrown to garbage. What could be done to prevent this to happen again?
For this question, like for example, the overproduction of these food crops, we have our government sectors wherein they help. Like for example, if they have the overproduction of, like for example, tomatoes, cabbage, so they supply it to their, like for example, yung mga kalapit na barangay wherein they could consume such products. And like for example, there are sectors like for example, DOST na tinutulungan nila yung mga local farmers wherein they could process these kinds of crops. Like for example, yung mga conserving, nilalata nila or binubote nila, wherein it could be consumed for future. So yun yung mga ginagawa ng ating government sector to help our local farmers deal with this overproduction of fruits and vegetables. As well as siguro yung mismong plan din ng ating mga farmers not to over-farm, like for example, or not to over-plant, yung magsusuffice lang mismo doon sa kailangan ng market demand. So yun. I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you, Ms. Cristina. So for the next question, from Jel Hamias, what is the impact of plant-based diet on the environment?
Plant-based diets, long way before, have a positive impact on the environment because, like for example, people to choose healthier choices when it comes to their diet, as well as plant-based, like for example, the fruits and the vegetables has lower carbon emission, lesser water use, as well as the land use. So it's basically the information that sum it up.
Okay, so next question from Clarissa Lynn Garcia. Today's problem about food scarcity, how would we able to practice sustainable diet?
With this scarcity of food, like for example, we have a lot of local produce, like for example, the fruits and vegetables. So what we can do with this, like for example, kanina yung overproduction, is we could process it. So there are yung sinabi ko kanina na, like for example, sa DOSD, they provide help with these local farmers to be able to process this type of crops or fruit, like for example, maybe siyang jam, jellies, or fruit preserves, wherein thereby it could be consumed yung longer shelf life niya.
Okay, so for the next question, how does plant-based food help the environment? This question is from Jessie Salazar. So let me repeat the question. How does plant-based food help the environment?
I think ulit lang siya ng tanong kanina. So yung plant-based food help the environment by like for example, kasi pag plant-based, like for example, if local farmers would plant this crop, so mas lesser yung water compared, like for example, sa pag mag-put up ka ng farmhouses, like for example sa meat or sa dairy products. So these plant-based diets have lower impact on the carbon emissions sa environment.
Okay, for the last question, from Ms. Carmina C. Many people have switched to plant-based diet as a way to protect the environment. Is there a possibility that a plant-based diet can cause more carbon footprint than eating meat if we consider the scarcity of some vital, in terms of nutritional aspect, plant-based ingredients that needs to be transported from far regions?
So like for example, this transporting of the plant-based, like for example, crops or fruits, this is one of the many contributor. Like for example, kasi yung mga vehicle, like for example, meron tayong scarcity dito ng ingredients sa NCR. So that would be coming from Baguio or Benguet, yung mga crops or vegetables and fruits. So it would travel. So yung vehicle na yon, mag-emit siya ng carbon dioxide. So this transportation is one of many factors. So kasi yung ibang factors are ng carbon dioxide ay nagka-come from, like for example, yung mga industrial zone na nagma-manufacture as well, even the household, so nagko-contribute sila. So yun.
Thank you, Ms. Keith, for answering all our questions. And if we're not able to answer your questions due to time limitation, we will still send them to our official email address, pwfoodtrends2021@gmail.com. Ms. Keith, together with our team, will try to answer them. Ms. Hani?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. So before we proceed, we would like to correct the statement given by Ms. Dayan earlier regarding vegan. So she meant to say vegetarian. Vegetarian, according to the Vegetarian Society, vegetarians are people who do not eat products or byproducts of animal slaughter. However, many vegetarians do consume byproducts that do not involve slaughter of animals. This includes egg, dairy products such as milk, yogurt, honey, and including milk-based products. Veganism is a stricter form of vegetarianism. Vegans avoid consuming or using animal products and byproducts. Okay, So the link of the evaluation form is now open. Please click the link in the video description. So going back to our game, the correct answer is, it's letter A. So congratulations to Angelo Carlos Bobis, Abigail Apor, and Jeneline Elejorde for winning 100 pesos worth of load. Our team will get in touch with you through email or text message. So now, let us proceed with acknowledging the people who had given us their time, knowledge, and expertise for this webinar. May we call on Dr. Ligaya Braganza, Program Chair of School of Food Science and Technology, to award the Certificate of Appreciation to our three speakers. Dean Braganza, please do the honor.
Can I see the certificates? Okay. So the first one would be for Miss Beth Nicdao. The Philippine Women's University School of Food Science and Technology awards this certificate of appreciation to Miss Maribeth O. Nicdao as a resource person on the topic Food Hygiene Codes for the Plant-Based Foods during the Dawning of Plant-Based Food Revolution webinar held on the 16th of February in the year of our Lord 2021. Signed by yours truly. Miss Nicdao, congratulations.
Thank you,
Miss Beth, see you
Dean.
around.
Thank you, Dean.
Okay. Next, we have another certificate of appreciation is presented to Miss Diana G. Samson as a resource speaker on the topic Packaging Innovation for Green Living during the Dawning of Plant-Based Food Revolution webinar on the 16th of February 2021. Signed by yours truly. Congratulations, Miss Samson.
Thank you po.
And the third one is Certificate of Appreciation is also hereby presented to Miss Cristina B. Cana as the resource person on the topic Sustainability of Plant-Based Food and its Effects on the Environment during the Dawning of the Plant-Based Food Revolution webinar held on the 16th of February 2021. Signed, yours truly. Congratulations, Miss Kanya. Okay.
All right. So thank you, Dean Braganza, and congratulations to our three speakers.
To end the webinar series, may I call again Dr. Ligaya Braganza, Program Chair of School of Food Science and Technology, to give her closing remarks.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. It has been a long day, but nevertheless enriching. But first, allow me to congratulate and thank all the people and groups of individuals who were responsible in the delivery organization and delivery of this webinar. Let's be a successful one. Of course, first and foremost would be our 5 resource persons who share their time and talent in discussing relevant and very informative topics. Of course, and the members, not to forget the members of the team Food Science and team Food Safety for their support and cooperation and all the hard work behind the scene. All these ably guided and supervised by our 2 energetic professors, Miss Maria Divina Alcazabas and of course Miss Lynn Lorilla. More importantly, the members of our PW multimedia team, the ICT, the marketing team, special mention to Dr. Menchita Dumlao, the head of the Technology Information Delivery Team, of course, Miss Maha Kabatuando, Bob, without Bob, wala tayo dito online ngayon. And of course, Vladimir. Thank you very much for always being there for all these types of events. You are our wing beneath, they are the wind beneath our wings. Okay? Of course, the attendees, all those who attended this morning, afternoon session, thank you for your active participation, especially in the poll questions and the Q&A sessions. Okay. Your remarks and recommendations would be our benchmark for our next webinars. Okay. Now, we hope the mix of topics discussed in today's webinar increase all our awareness, our consciousness, our knowledge, on the nutritional, safety, and environmental impacts of plant-based foods. Our resource persons have continually emphasized the significance of plant-based foods, not only in the diet, but also for the food manufacturing industry. This was underscored by the United Nations when, according to Ms. Ida, they declared 2021 as the International Year of Fruits and Vegetables. Okay? I would say that this is an opportune time for us to shift, if not totally, but rather gradually, from animal-based to plant-based diets for longevity, health, and wellness, notwithstanding the allergens and hazards that are posed by the plant-based food. At the end of the day, it is a personal choice. Just have to weigh the pros and cons. And on this note, I will leave you to ponder on this. Okay? Good day and stay safe, everyone. Thank you for attending and for uh, going through all the whole day of this webinar. Okay? Thank you. Also to our two MCs or facilitators, Miss Hanilyn and Miss what do you call it? Mira Rosta. Okay? And to our other members of the team. Thank you all. And God bless you all.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Ligaya Braganza. So please join us in singing the PWU hymn. Okay, so thank you very much to everyone who joined with us. But before we go, we would like also to present to you our team from Food Science and Food Safety. So this is now a photo opportunity for the rest of the team with our supportive advisors, Prof. Debbie, Prof. Lynn, together with our Dean Braganza, Dr. Dumlao, Ms. Maha, Sir Vlad, and Sir Bob, and the rest of the multimedia team. So guys, we are now able to see the people behind this webinar. So photo opportunity, guys. congratulations to the whole team.
Congratulations.
Team Food Science and Food Safety, we would like to thank the multimedia team for your invaluable support, and we hope to see you in our future webinars and food industry updates. This has been Mira Del Rosa Rosso.
Naka-off-cam ka, Han.
Okay, so this is Hanilin Lolarga. Thank you and keep safe, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
Debs.
Congrats, everybody.